Howdy, friends. Welcome to Space Café. Welcome to Black Ops by Ralph Thiele. You are invited to ride with us the space wave with LEOs and NEOs. Hundreds and thousands of very capable satellites are about to travel to space, ready to engage. We will discuss with thrilling guests implications for security and defense. Join us for 60 minutes. We count on you.
I'm Thorsten Kriening, publisher of SpaceWatch.Global. We are a Switzerland-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Café podcast. We also keep our fan shop online open for you, where you can support us actively to become a space watcher. Edition 1 has cool mugs, awesome t-shirts, and brand new reflecting jackets, backpacks, and much more cool items for you, your friends, and the ones you love. Your support is needed to keep our work alive. For you. And if you missed any of the previous web talks, we have an archive available on our webpage in the events section and on YouTube. And now, ladies and gentlemen, my job is done for the moment, and it's my pleasure to hand over to your host today, to Ralph Thiele. Over to you, Ralph.
Thank you, Thorsten. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here again, and it's wonderful to have our second issue of Black Ops. Quantum technologies is an issue of today, and its implications for security and defense. And in fact, quantum is quite an exciting issue when you take a general look at all these new technologies out there. In principle, artificial intelligence is a kind of workhorse of today's digital transformation, and quantum is the T-Rex. For those of you who have seen Jurassic Park, you know that's something scary, frightening, exciting, and this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Quantum technologies are generating new capabilities. What they do, as well as they enhance and multiply existing technologies such as nano, bio, cyber, encryption, artificial intelligence, of course. And over the next 2 decades, more or less, we will see game-changing quantum technologies coming up, in particular also in space. And when you look at the real potential, it's in computing, it's in communication, it's in cryptography, it's in navigation, sensing capabilities, and others more. And they will have far-reaching effects for military forces, for intelligence services, and law enforcement agencies, so security in a very broad scale. Something that many are worried about already today, and where in fact a couple of nations, countries, and other actors are collecting already your secrets, is the capability of quantum computers to crack current encryption and encrypted data. And because they expect these computing capabilities to instantaneously hack your secrets, and so they collect them in advance and then start decrypting them. And this means for those who care about their secrets, they have less than 10 years of preparation time now to care about that. Afterwards, it will be quite late. Now, quantum communication cannot be hacked, and that's why quantum key distribution actually has come to the fore. We have seen that, and actually just a couple of days ago, we learned that China has built the world's first integrated space-to-ground quantum communications network, consisting of 700 fiber optic QKD links on the ground, and then related with 2 high-speed satellite-to-ground QKD links that covers, in principle, a distance of 4,600 kilometers. So what it means is, in principle, China will not be able to be hacked in their secrets. this is something I think other players have to get used to, while their secrets may be possible to hack. And China is thinking of enlarging this network to Austria, Italy, Russia, and Canada, and even to sell, go commercial and sell some of the stuff, cost-effective QKD satellites and ground-based receivers. So quantum is happening not just in China, but in a couple of places. We will discuss the issues that come around it, and we have two really exciting guests, which are Heike, Dr. Engineer Heike Poignand, and Professor Dr. José Achache. I think quite enormous expertise that we could assemble to discuss with you quantum issues, what kind of game-changing capabilities come to us. Heike will be the one I ask first, so let me just say a couple of words on Heike. She has a technical background as a diploma in mechanical engineering and a doctorate in lasers. She has a long time experience in sales projects and business development. And in particular, she has been setting up the first big European satellite QKD project, Quartz is the name, with SAS and partners throughout Europe. Actually, this is where I've met Heike first when we were visiting relevant stakeholders. So we expect great expertise, Heike, and now you, I think, give us a start to this today's session. Welcome, Heike.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I'm flattered. Also, thanks to Thorsten and Ralph again for having us here today. But also, most importantly, hello and welcome once again to our audience to this somewhat futuristic topic we're talking about today. So as Ralph already mentioned, I was involved in that project, Quartz, on the first big satellite quantum key distribution in Europe. And that's where I got quite some insight and first-hand experience that it was and still is quite a challenge to propose a complex solution to that it's difficult to understand, especially for a potential future threat that you're not even aware of. So as also mentioned in the beginning, this is still a lot of work of awareness raising to do and education that needs to be done outside the circle of experts. And I'm glad to be contributing to that today. So what is satellite quantum key distribution? First, let's introduce the satellite quantum key distribution. I will refer to as QKD in short. That makes it a bit easier. I will spare you and me the end the deep dive into quantum mechanics. As Feynman said, anyway, nobody understands it. And it's rather about what you can do with that and how it works, then how it works in detail. So let's have a look at the individual elements. We have satellite, we have quantum, and we have key distribution. So the satellite as such is, yeah, for us here, basically the easiest part still, just to keep in mind a bit that you have to juggle with a bit different orbit position, footprints, coverage, and optical frequencies. So we're not talking classical RF here. Then we have the part key distribution or key exchange, which is for the cybersecurity also well-known concept in general. Thing to keep here in mind, if you're familiar with this a bit, is the difference between public and private keys. But where does the quantum come in here? So most people have sort of instant association with radioactive cats or so. In our case, no cats. We're looking at photons and making use of their quantum particle properties. So to do this from the satellite, there are currently two ways of doing it or being used. You might have heard about this famous entanglement. So where there pairs of entangled photons are produced and sent to the parties. Or there's another way, the so-called prepare and measure protocol, where a true random number is generated, which is supposed to be your key. That can also be done by a quantum random number generator, but I'm think José might refer to this application later as well. Extremely simplified, what they have in common is that we have a string of random zeros and ones that is generated, coded in a photon state, and sent to the partners that want to communicate. And there, that pre-agreed photon property is measured. So basically, you could say satellite quantum key distribution is a special case of optical satellite communication, as we're talking about free space, single photon transmission. And as you can imagine, such a system needs to be extremely accurate to catch your photon on ground. We have a laser point-to-point connection with a sort of inherent security advantages concerning interception and jamming. On the other hand, it's very meteorosensitive. That means bad weather, no key. So of course the two systems have differences in terms of safety, performance, maturity, but obviously every well thought through system is theoretically secure until it hits reality. So trade-offs need to be made, risk mitigation, and so on and so forth. So all this is already being worked on, and the projects are in implementation. So as such a system is very infrastructure and cost intensive, why would anyone need this? So as we already heard in the introduction from Ralph, quantum computers are being built and making huge progress. They can perform calculation exponentially faster than current computers. They're still not the holy grail. There will be always other applications, but they're very useful for specific tasks, especially simulations in chemistry, molecules design, search engines, or code breaking. The latter is obviously the reason why sooner or later current underlying public key exchange to secure communication is at risk. So it's not a question anymore if this is going to happen, but when. Ralph said 10 years, that's still in discussion, but probably very soon. So, and this is why people are working on new ways of protecting that in the future. Satellite QKD is one possible solution to that threat. For example, as QKD is a symmetric key cryptography, you could, for example, replace the guy with the suitcase changed to his wrist. Yes, this guy really exists, not only in the movies. You can replace them by a more secure system. Or another major advantage is that eavesdropping can be detected, so you can tell if somebody is intercepting your key, or if it's blocked. And with the satellite, the biggest advantage also is you can get global reach. But is this for you and me already tomorrow? Not quite. So for whom is this interesting? Essentially for everybody who has highly sensitive and valuable information to protect in the long term. And that's not my pizza order, right? On top of the list, what a surprise in this context, we have governments, defense organizations, security agencies with the highest security requirements. And they might aspire even the ownership of the system, not to rely on a commercial service provider. But also others, like telecom operators, they're very much involved already all over the world looking into quantum key distribution or other possibilities. Critical infrastructure, essential to protect energy, electricity, water supply. I mean, everybody who saw Die Hard 4 know what scenarios I'm thinking of. And healthcare providers, for example, web service providers. So, and it's really important to mention here that the point in time to seriously look into this for each application depends strongly on the shelf life of the information that needs to be protected. Still, if it's being collected, as Ralph said. So, but all this still requires a lot of effort to put it in place on time. and show that what it can provide. And this is where the governance comes in. So we heard about China. There are many more worldwide efforts. But let's have a look at Europe. There are multiple national QKD satellite projects in different European countries, but they are all contributing to the overall European solution for a joint effort, because this is not a one company or not even a one country project. And so the main public actors here are the European Commission and the European Space Agency. Just the day before yesterday, at the opening speech of the European Space Conference in Brussels, Thierry Breton, the European Commissioner for Internal Market, he confirmed once more the commitment and investment in European tech sovereignty in general, and announced a quantum constellation initiative still this year in particular. So I quote, what is connectivity, secure digital connection for the future, project Europe into the quantum era, ensuring quantum encrypted communication. And he wants to go fast. So that's great news for all of us working on that. It's very ambitious, but it's not like nothing has happened yet. I mean, there were already projects started ago who enabled that, who laid the groundwork to be able to take off now on this. And it's just getting traction now and momentum. We had, for example, the quantum flagship for about €1 billion, covering all those quantum technologies on ground, in space, and in general. But now, more in particular, there is an initiative that's called the Euro QCI, so European Quantum Communication Infrastructure, which started as a terrestrial testbed with several testbeds, but in cooperation and coordination with the ESA program like Skylight or Saga, to add the space component, also working towards an integrated overall quantum communication network. Just a remark here, if we're talking about that, quote, QKD or key exchange as such is only the first step in establishing a communication. So a quantum communication infrastructure, quantum internet, it's much more than only that. So in summary, the support we're getting now from ESA and the Commission is not only welcome, it's certainly necessary, because it has a high potential, but it's expensive and complex infrastructure. So that's all the more it is important that the full spectrum of possibilities is exploited together. A crucial, in my point of view, a very crucial would be the coordination of standardization efforts. It's completely new now. There is no standard to check against when developing. The US NIST, for example, even says, and there will never be one, right? So European efforts better be coordinated in that respect. So it's no question, in my opinion, that it needs to be institutionalized, at least in the beginning, to get started and not to fall behind in the international quantum race. So Europe certainly has some very bright people, great ideas, and it's good to see it finally starts capitalizing on that. To come to the end, if you'd ask me for a further outlook in terms of market and success in general, I'd like to stay with the quantum world and quote Niels Bohr, who said, "Prediction is very difficult, especially for the future." So on that note, thank you very much, and looking forward to questions and the discussions.
Yeah, thank you, Heike, very much for this broad overview that it gave us really a good imprint on where we stand. Not necessarily where we get, and I think of the Chinese of the Chinese capability that we have out there now. So from there, it's a little bit like with the pandemic when you see all the other getting forward, you ask yourself, why are we so slow? We will come back to that later. What you also mentioned is that we have a lot of bright and gifted minds. This is a kind of lead over, José, already to you. In fact, when I did my research on new technologies, Europe has something like 5,000 scientists on quantum, which is more or less half of what the world has to offer. What it looks like is that there are other parts in the world that get more traction to the ground in terms of applications, industrial things. So we have to see how that is. Anyhow, someone who can tell us all of that much more is José Achache. I mentioned already his background that he has as professor of geophysics and earth sciences. Then he has a long phase of as top executive in France and international R&D organizations. And today he is with his company offering strategic and technical support to space projects and commercial applications. So so how do you see the quantum worlds? What are the opportunities? Where should we get accustomed to? Please give us your views.
Well, thank you, Ralph. Now, just to complete your presentation, I've always been interested in environment and security. I started with PNES 20 years ago, and today I'm still doing this in space through either IoT or optical system. I think optical systems are very important, and for the companies I'm working with, essentially in these domains. I think first thing I'd like to emphasize is what Heike has just said. There is a lot of activity, and you stated it. Most of the scientists in quantum physics are coming from Europe, or let's say a significant fraction. And there's a lot of activity in quantum key distribution and related activities in Europe. Of course, there was the Quartz project that Heike has initiated at ECS with the support of ESA. But the Germans are doing a QB. Canada is also working on a KeySat. Italy is doing an experiment using a very old satellite, LEGIOS, and they're very active in this domain. And the UK, of course, with this, they have a CubeSat. They're trying to do a CubeSat QKD. And TNO, France. All these countries are running activities, and of course Switzerland. And 4 years ago, actually, in Switzerland, we conducted a complete phase A for a quantum key distribution satellite. It was called QSat. It was essentially my company together with ID Quantique. And the phase A was concluded two things. Number one, technically, it's very easy to do. It doesn't even need entanglement. Entanglement is beautiful and provides additional specificity, but in many cases, I mean, you can do a quantum key distribution satellite without doing entanglement in space. There are other ways to use the quantum properties of photons. But the other conclusion is that there's no business case. And in Switzerland, if there's no business case, there's no mission. We don't get government support for this kind of missions, but it will come. Heike has mentioned that the European Commission wants to support the development of quantum in space. Fine. If we get the funding, then we can deploy, and we can deploy as fast as the Chinese. Keep in mind that a significant fraction of what the Chinese have developed, their 5,000 kilometer network, is based on ID Quantique Geneva-based technology. Initially, worked with the Chinese, and the rest, the space component, is from Anton Zeilinger, who is professor in Austria. So everything the Chinese is doing is essentially coming from the Dash region. But Now let me go one step further. I mean, quantum key distribution is not the only application of quantum physics and quantum technologies in space. There are many others, and essentially all come under optical and let's say the gradually increasing role that optics will take in space. One thing that we are seeing today is the development of optical communication. This is absolutely fundamental, because optical communication will provide two things which are critical for security. Number one, it will provide unlimited bandwidth, unlike Ka-band and the radio bands that we're using for satellite communications. With optical, we have unlimited capability, like in fiber optics. And the other dimension of optics is that it is stealthy by nature. In other words, if you start sending a radio signal, everybody can listen. But if you beam an optical signal to a station, only the people who are in the beam will be able to listen. And since most of these optical communication will be at 1550 nanometers, it's invisible. So essentially, you cannot catch an optical communication system. And on top of that, if of course this optical system is encrypted using quantum key distributed keys, then the system is totally secure. So for that reason, optical communication is going to take a growing place. And not just optical communication, but also optical system and optronics, for instance, will have to develop. And so we see companies, take an example, a company like Ligentech, a very small startup in Switzerland from EPFL. They're developing optronic chips, and these chips are based on quantum technologies. There's tunnel effects, there are many effects, quantum effects, which are being used to develop these optronic chips. The main problem with optical systems is it's very difficult to generate non-linearities. And you know, the base of electronics is transistors, and transistor is a non-linear system where you control a strong signal with a weak signal. Doing this in optics is very difficult, but this is exactly what Ligentech is trying to do, non-linear photonics. When we get there, we will be able to construct satellites which will be mostly doing optics. And another example of quantum activities is quantum detection. Using detectors based on quantum physics gives you a much higher sensitivity, and again, they're completely stealthy. Any electromagnetic sensor will be visible, or could be detected. Quantum detectors will not be detected. And finally, the last application, which is one I'm directly involved with, one of the company I'm working with, which is dot photon, is image compression based on quantum physics. One of the big problems we have with Sentinel-2, for instance, is that the mere size of the files, of the data which have to be transmitted is huge. And of course, we can increase the bandwidth of the communication system, as I mentioned, with EDRS and optical systems. But still, another way to go is to compress the images, reduce the size of the images. The problem then is if you use an image for tactical reasons, you're interested in the details. You're interested in this little change somewhere, which is going to be significant from a tactical standpoint. And therefore, if you do compression in space, of space images, they have to be lossless compression. And this is exactly what dot photon has achieved. based on the analysis of the noise and the understanding of the noise, and in particular the quantum noise of the optical detectors, dot photon is able to do a tenfold compression of images without losing any information. So this is another application of quantum physics rather than quantum technology. There's no quantum technology per se on board, but it's really the quantum nature of this phenomena which allows us to progress. So you see, with the I would say the invasion of optronics and optical communication and optical systems in space for security, I think the number of applications of quantum is going to be infinite. I will rest here, Ralph, to open the room for discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Ralph, may I jump in? There was one question to your talk about the startup working on QKD at the EPFL. Can you please name them again?
Well, actually, there's a company in Geneva working on QKD, not in space, but QKD in fiber, which is ID Quantique. It's a 10-year-old company, so it's not really a startup anymore. And I mentioned a company at EPFL which is working on photonics components, photonic integrated circuits. This company is called Ligentech. And essentially they use silicon nitride to do photonic integrated circuits, which are very efficient. The other company I mentioned, which is doing quantum detectors, is NIRA-X. And this is another EPFL company which is developing photonic sensors.
Great. Thanks for clarification.
Yeah, thank you very much, José, for this wonderful broad entering the quantum issues. So we have now a big scale in principle. You mentioned there is no business case as a kind of qualifier. I think we really have to look into that now in the next discussion that we now start. I just take note that we are obviously before a major technology agenda coming up. This comes out from the United States in its competition vis-à-vis China. It comes out from our relations with the new US government now coming up, and its relations with Europe. Actually, the US also want to involve us dealing with Japan, South Korea, and others on the issues. So the question is, when both of you, Heike and José, when you look now at stakeholders, at markets, at urgency, perhaps to achieve things. So what is your sensing what quantum capabilities we will see in the, well, certainly not near, but medium future? José, perhaps you start first, and then I ask Heike.
Well, on quantum technologies in general, the service I mentioned from dot photon, which is image compression, this one has immediate access to the market, because the people in need of image compression are everywhere. They are in the medical domain, where you have to store millions of images, and compression is needed in photography, and of course in space for remote sensing. Because the next, I would say, the next step in remote sensing will be video, right? We've been discussing this for a while, but for security reasons, obviously, what you want to have from space is not just still images, but short videos of areas, which allows you to understand if anything of interest is taking place. And if you start doing 10 frames or 20 frames per second, then it really becomes impossible to transmit if you don't do compression. So this technology that Photon is providing will be developing extremely fast with image compression and video compression because they need lossless compression. Now QKD, and Heike will complement what I'm saying. Well, there is no immediate business case because no one has a real willingness to pay. And even if you tell a bank or a biotechnology company that their secrets are going to be stolen in 10 years, if they don't take now the proper actions to protect them, well, 10 years is too long a time frame for any private company to make a significant investment. So this investment, this market traction will have to be driven by government needs and by security requirements. And that's why we, both Heike and myself, we welcome this new initiative of the European Commission to develop a secure global network and to secure quantum communication processing. But we will need the support of governments, of the European Commission, of the military forces to invest in this technology. Because again, we have the capability to provide it. We just need people to show an interest, a vested interest.
Heike.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. I mean, that's also what I was trying to say, that we need the support to beginning, because 10 years from now, it's much too far ahead for companies. Still, there are some, especially the telecom operators, for example, also not only China, but there is South Korean telecom is building up a QKD network. BT in the UK is building something. Other telecom operators in Euro and worldwide are doing this also, maybe with funding, but also with their own means. On the other hand, there is also a big discussion ongoing about, but we had the part of the certification that is quantum key distribution not the only way to secure that quantum threat, quantum computer thread, as we want to say. There are also others who say, okay, this is not the right solution. There are others that we have to adapt our algorithms. We have to make quantum safe algorithms. And I think there are still two very polarized discussions ongoing on if QKD is even the right solution to protect that. And then you have to really to look at the details and the strength of quantum key distribution, and maybe the strength of the algorithm to have a complementary system in this respect, depending on what you try to protect, what you not to protect. You're right, the business case thing and the enthusiasm of banks at the very first beginning when we asked them was not very high, but they will keep saying, they keep watching, they keep observing, and then at some point when it's shown to be safe, and if it's available, then yeah, but this is still quite a long way to get there, to have the acceptance of commercial, especially smaller firms and entities.
Perhaps one, yeah, okay, please, José.
If I may, Ralph, I mean, this what Heike said is important. Indeed, a lot of people claim, or you can claim, that QKD may not be the simplest solution to secure communication. But what I explained earlier is that we will develop optical communication, because free space optics and free space optical communication, whether it's satellite to satellite, satellite to ground, or ground to ground, will develop, because it's an incredibly powerful and secure technology. So once you develop the optical infrastructure and the terminals which will allow you to do this communication, whether it's between a ship in the ground or a satellite in the ground, then adding the quantum channel and putting the quantum key distribution on top of it will be extremely simple, much more natural than going for other security technologies.
One more question to Heike with regard to the timing. I recall that ESA had a plan for a pilot in space in the near future. Is that still valid, or is there a change in that?
I'm not directly involved, but from what I know, I mean, the Quartz project had the first phase, right? And there was always in mind, if this is successful, that would go on to a second one. And I do think this is with this news and with the whole funding available, and that really Europe is committed, that I do expect that something is going to fly very soon.
At least that sounds promising. So we're now in our last third, which is the audience reign. So from there, are there questions already from you that you listen to us? Anything where we can contribute, where we can give you some highlights or insights that you're looking for?
We do have one question from Shiwankar with regards to cybersecurity. How much time would it take the quantum computer to break the HTTPS encryption? For instance, read the traffic minutes, hours, or just seconds? Would it break the symmetric or asymmetric encryption, or both?
Who wants it?
I can say, maybe then anybody can correct me, or so what I was always saying is that the asymmetric, so the public encryption is at risk for the quantum computer due to its capabilities of really parallel processing of things. If it's in 10 years, or that depends also on how fast. There are some predictions, and it's altered every year. It's getting shorter every year. So at some point it was said, okay, you don't have to think about it, but now comes into the 10 years range that they say a quantum computer that is powerful enough to really break it then in seconds, right? That it's instead of an eternity, you still need 2 years. No, but we're talking then really breaking it down to seconds.
Okay.
I hope that's a bit of an idea.
Yeah. Well, it's speculation at this point, but when we think at the envisaged computer capacity, I think experts talk about instantaneous hacking, which could be even faster than that. I think this is a really worrisome situation that we are looking forward now with all these communication capabilities, 5G included, with this enormous speed that things can be done. We need to get prepared to deal with it, and that makes me a little bit comfortable, although after, Heike, our discussions with stakeholders, that in an international situation where there is a high degree of competition, though not in war, I think this is what most of the space community also doesn't want to see. But what we have is a lot of hybrid activities, so under just below the threshold of war, that allow us to use in gray zones capabilities, technological capabilities that are out there. And here quantum offers all kinds of things, and this is besides communication, also this kind of hacking, and governments and governmental services cannot afford to let that happen. So there is my sensing that there is still lack of knowledge about much of these things, at least on a broader sense, and with decision makers and leaderships. But the educated communities have a pretty clear view of what's going on. And in a way, I was also encouraged in the past 2 years to witness that our scientific, so the research community is not left alone, but you find more and more business companies also getting involved. So I recall a meeting where Volkswagen was in, or Telekom was in, or Rote Schwarz was in. So at least observing the things and even contributing, where measurement entities were presented that you can come. So this is building up, and I suspect the government will do a lot with that. José, please.
Yes, I see a question being asked in the discussion section about how the quantum use case for remote sensing in space will improve the application versus what we have today. So I guess this refers to what the technology I was presenting about from Photon, this Swiss company. Essentially, the advantage will be twofold. If you make a 10-time compression of an image, immediately it's faster to transmit the image. And even when you manipulate the image, because if you want to download a Sentinel-2 image, it takes a lot of time. So transmission time is reduced, and storage space is reduced. But there's another advantage which is much more fundamental and brings us back to your introduction, Ralph, which is artificial intelligence. When you run an artificial intelligence software, the software is extremely sensitive to noise. And if your data set the data set that you use for training your machine learning software is heterogeneous and not well calibrated, then it doesn't work. And the good thing with quantum compression is that, as I said, quantum compression is based on a detailed, comprehensive analysis of the noise. And you make a clear identification of electronic noise and quantum noise. And once you have identified, analyzed this noise, you can remove it. So essentially, this compression is based on noise reduction, which means that these data are much more efficient to be used for training machine learning software. So the big advantage is, of course, there's a practical advantage, which is less space in storage and faster communication. But the more fundamental advantage is that those quantum compressed images by Photon can be used for machine learning. And this is absolutely fundamental for the applications that are developing based on remote sensing images.
Thank you very much. In fact, and Thorsten, you interrupt me if you have questions to come in. In fact, I just noted that SpaceX got another contract with the Pentagon on getting satellites up there to check on hypersonic missiles and other dealing with drones and their information workloads they have. I think there are a couple of now challenging threats out there. Electromagnetic spectrum is another issue that comes up. There are a lot of things very data rich that lead artificial intelligence that have to cope with bandwidth that in fact will drive this development, as you, José, just have described it, because the requirement is very high. We have generally in the world, I think there is no real glue how to deal with hypersonic carriers at the moment because our missile defense is not good enough to deal with them because of the speed that is required. So it's bandwidth, it's computing, it's sensing, all kinds of everything that need to be come up, and there is a kind of urgency when you see that the Russians are flying already several models of hypersonic weapons since last year. The Chinese have done so in 2020 as well. The Americans plan in, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years to come up with respective capabilities. So there's a very urgent pressing on getting better, and space obviously is the place to be to deal with that, with those threats.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and again, being able to capture images fast, transmit images very fast, analyze images in an automatic way through machine learning is absolutely critical, and that's why these technologies of image compression, in my view, are absolutely fundamental for the future of space security. I mean, detecting high-speed new space weapons will require very fast response to, and it can only be based on images, which will be not be the simple thermal infrared images that were being used as bursts in these missile launch detection systems. I mean, all this will have to be upgraded and brought to the current technology.
Thank you. Thorsten, I see there are questions.
Yep. From Bruno, follow-up question on the hypersonic weapons. What complementarities between quantum radar technology and space? Can you make something out of this question?
So José, if not in the end, I will say words. But José, Heike, is that somewhere in the area of your expertise?
We lost Heike somewhere.
No, no. My expertise is in radar interferometry, but quantum radar, I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, well, in principle, what we're looking in quantum is measuring gravitation. I think this is the thing to come, which really is interesting because if you measure what is it? Gravity. If you measure gravity, in principle, all your investments in stealth are in vain. So that you look for. So there's a lot of same applies to submarines, by the way, and so with regard to hypersonics, I'm not so sure whether the radar way or the measuring gravity way is the best thing to approach the issue. So I think in the end we will end up optical tracing it. And the problem with the hypersonics is that different from these ballistic missiles, they don't have a clear curve. So with the ballistic missiles, if you measure 2 points, in principle, you have an idea what they are supposed to hit. The problem with the hypersonic missiles is they are much faster, number one, at least those that go through space. And number two is they can move, they can alter their direction until the very end. So they're very kind of maneuverable, and this kind of makes it difficult. So I don't see radar in the moment as a solution to the problem.
Hi, Heike, do we have you back? Hello, can you hear us? Okay, Heike's micro is on, but okay, then we continue with another question about the intellectual property and the disputes about it. Mehmet asked the question, I wonder if there are any disputes on intellectual property rights about space technologies that mentioned, and if there is, how are these problems being solved?
Again, Jose, I give you the first, but I can give a shot on this as well.
Well, I don't have much to say. I don't think there are any disputes, at least not disputes that I know, but usually when there are, you don't know about it, only the people involved know about it. Of course, there's IP. So IP, yes, I can say there's IP behind most of the technology I've been mentioning, whether it's the silicon nitride photonics from Ligentech or the quantum compression from dot photon, or the quantum sensors from ERAX, or all this is IP protected. Quantum key distribution, I think it's more open, and IP might be in the subsystems. Heike mentioned the quantum random number generator, which is a critical component in the chain, and QRNG, space qualified QRNGs. Not everybody can do it. It's based on technology that is also IP protected. Again, there's IP protection. I'm not aware of any IP dispute.
So from my perspective, the IP has a couple of dimensions. One is the standard, of course, applies also to quantum. Means you can protect your IPs as you develop the problem that we have in general with new technologies is we talk about system of systems in principle. So the thing you protect in the end is not necessarily the principal IP that you have developed to start a capability, but how do you run a system? What are the processes? What are the interactions? How can it be disturbed, delayed, destroyed, whatsoever? And here we of course have a very high time of IP theft. This has come up with a whole set of cyber capabilities. We could see that now with the pandemics. Again, I think every kind of intelligence service was the development of the vaccines as they came up, and we can be sure the same will apply to quantum. Just the SolarWinds thing that came up the other day shows you how intelligence services are really in everything of interest, be it from the governmental or from the enterprise side. Heike, you're back. I see your name. No.
It seems she has problems with
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Yes, you're back.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sorry. Somehow my now the other one works as well. I had trouble with my connection, so I logged in over the hardline, but there's no video, I'm afraid. But I can see you and hear you.
Good. So Heike, any comment from you on the issues we just discussed?
Yeah, I missed a bit. I'm sorry. I just got your last response, and then I was looking which. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. No, it's
solve my
fine.
problem. I'm sorry.
It's fine. We continue with Thorsten questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Here's a question explicitly asked for Heike from Navid. Speaking from both our space and cyber security background, I'm thinking that a question that will often come up with potential customers is, what are the advantages over established methods of key distribution? That's for you.
That's for me. Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's a bit what we have been discussing. So we have actual very valid key distribution systems which are done, algorithms and so on, which were supposed to be secure for hacking 50 years ago, supposed to be forever. Now 50 years later there might come up another way, and this is the danger of the quantum computing, that those algorithms can be somehow compromised, so that this key distribution is not safe anymore, especially if you look at our public key distributions underlying in every communication nowadays, which is mathematically just hard enough to solve problem. And the longer the key, the longer it takes to hack this or to find this. And with quantum computers, this is basically could be done in seconds. And so this is why we're working on a quantum key distribution system. Or, as I also mentioned already, there are other people working on more powerful algorithms to solve the problem as well. So I hope that that answers the question.
Okay, so we have no further question from the from the audience, Ralph, and we are almost on the top of the hour. So
so thank you very much. Thank you, Heike and José. I think that quantum is a challenging issue. I think the more we will dive into it in the future, the more problems I think we rather get than answers. And what both of you really have achieved in a positive note to see what's going on and what is it good for, and what are the perspectives. I think this is really anything you could expect from such a discussion, and I thank everybody involved. I see our participants have been staying with us all the time, so thank you very much for participating, and also thank you very much for your questions. And so thank you for being with us today, and we very much look forward to meet you at the next Black Ops session as we will have.
We are planning, I mean, taking the calendar, that might be, and that's just a heads up for our audience, on the 11th of March, plus minus, yeah, we will come to that, and we will keep you informed. Also, big thank you to Heike and José. It was great to have you, and as always, Ralph, a wonderful session. And our next webinars are, if our production can get us the slide up, thank you. I will host next week on 19th of January, Elodie Vio from ESA in my 33-minute Space Café on Tuesday at 4 p.m. A week later, on the 26th, I will have Dr. Peter Martinez from the Secure World Foundation as my guest. And 2 days later, on the 28th, we will start another Australia-friendly event, the Space Café Law Breakfast with Stephen Freeland. Stephen, myself, and two guests will discuss real-world implications of space law, such as Hayabusa 2 landing in the outbacks of Australia, or the new Biden administration in the White House at that point of time, because it's the 28th. So, and with some hope, there's the Biden administration then in the White House already. So, on the 2nd of February, my Space Café will host Dr. Marco Ferrazani, the head of legal of ESA, and we also started a series of regional Space Café. So the Netherlands, Brazil will come up, and the UAE, and in Arabic, Brazil, then obviously in Portuguese. Our next Black Ops Space Café will be about, as mentioned, in 2 months on the 11th of March, but we keep you updated on that. All events are on Eventbrite or will be on Eventbrite very soon. As always, we would like to hear your feedback, so please check in with us on Twitter, on Facebook, or LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up to our daily or our bi-weekly newsletters, and if you treat yourself with something special, become a Space Watcher today. Take your credit card and visit our fan shop at shop.SpaceWatch.Global. Thank you all very much for your interest, and thank you all in the exciting panel, or for this exciting panel, and being our guests, and thank you, Ralph, for the great moderation. Thanks again to the entire team behind the scenes for doing their great job week by week, or at the moment, day by day again. I hope you all will stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for joining us. I hope to see you next week. In the meantime, visit our website and follow us on social media. Don't forget, become a Space Watcher. See you.
Thank you. Thank you, José.
Bye-bye. All the best. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.